Hey everybody, welcome back to the Business of Boutique Fitness. I am your host, Caroline, team captain here of the Grow Your Studio Profitably program at Studio Grow, and a studio owner myself, and I'm joined today with Matt.
Thank you for having me.
How are you doing? Tell me about yourself.
I'm great. So my name's Matt. I am Australian born and raised, but live in the US now and have done for the past few years. I work on the Start Your Studio Profitably team with Studio Grow. I'm also a pricing specialist. So I'm excited to talk to you today, get back to our roots of instructing.
Yes, I love it. It's been a minute, but today we're talking about what makes a great instructor, what makes a great class. So many things that go into this.
So many things. So many.
So let's start with this. If you have to think of the best instructor or the best class you've ever taken, take me there. What was happening?
Yeah, I mean, it's just so much more than the workout. Right? It is so much more than the workout. I feel like our clients will resonate a little bit more with an instructor that they vibe with and that they really like, and they'll sacrifice potentially a little bit of that programming element if they really connect with an instructor, right? Whereas on the flip side, if the programming is great, but the instructor is a nightmare or they just don't have that connection with them, they're a lot more likely to drop off.
100%. I always think of at my studio, my lead instructor, his name is Nick. He is like 6'5", huge dude, covered in tattoos. He also, apart from teaching yoga, he is a touring metal musician, like most unassuming yogi known to man.
I love that. What a combo.
But like he makes people feel so pumped, so excited when they're coming in and they're nervous for the first class. And I have heard so many times from these people that are like, man, I took a class with Nick and he asked me, 2 weeks later when I came back, I heard you were going to Trader Joe's after class. What did you get there? And it's like these little things that don't matter at all, but can make a massive impact on somebody's experience and be like, man, they really saw me. That was cool. I'm coming back.
Absolutely. So I think what you're really describing there, and quite similar to me, is it's the power of their presence, right? So I think when we talk about that, it's around how the instructor commands the room. Yeah. Right? It's performative, but it also has this individual kind of vibe to it where, yes, there might be, anywhere from 8 to 40 people in this class, but I feel like they're connecting with me and I feel like they're training me right now.
Yeah. And it's really hard. And I think you do have to kind of assume a persona because listen, there are going to be days where you're like, I don't want to teach those 5 classes. And man, it is 5 a.m. and it is early and I have to be on and bring the energy. And so there's an element of, when I'm leading a teacher training, I'm really guiding people to find their voice and what is your unique viewpoint on the studio? How are you going to present yourself in a way that feels authentic and clicks with clients?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm an introvert.
Me too.
Right. Yeah. It takes energy from me to be, loud and in front of people and with people and all that kind of stuff. So I definitely, when I was an instructor, had those mornings where I was like, how am I going to do this? Yeah. Right? Like I am drained, but it's almost like being an actor, right? Like you kind of snap your fingers and you play the role and you almost trick your body into believing it. I had so many times where I started a class feeling like I've got nothing left in the tank. I just need to go to bed. But by the time I finish the class, I'm like, am I running a marathon right now? Yeah. I think I'm going to go run a marathon because my energy was just peaking.
Yeah, that happens every time. And you really find that flow of the class in a different way than the clients are while they're moving through it. But it is really powerful. And you do find yourself, you're like, yes, this is great. I am loving this. And that's what we want. And so I think a part of that is mastering the craft of whatever modality you're teaching, but embodying both the hard and soft skills. Yes, you technically need to make sure that people aren't getting hurt and their form looks good and you're offering that advice. But also you need to have those soft skills. What do your people want? And every client is going to be different. Every studio will be different.
Yeah, I think it's such a good point, right? And I think so often we focus on the technical element, right? And we're very intentional in terms of the technical element of our classes, right? So we're going to take that time to program it out and to really think about, each sort of stage of the class. We're going to spend the time programming our music and doing all of that. But how often do we actually sit down and map out our soft skills, right? Like I'm going to make sure at this point in the session, I'm calling people out, that I'm recognizing this, that I'm allocating time for cueing and correction and all of that. It's so important to strike that balance. And I think that when we think of our soft skills, we don't necessarily have to, and in fact, it can even be detrimental to almost have them as a checkbox. And they should more kind of be concepts of how we approach the delivery, right? So even down to body language, body language and tone of voice and just making sure you're moving and you're doing things with your hands, that instantly is going to give this perception of energy and engagement, eye contact.
Yeah,
right?
totally.
Literally just make eye contact with people, straight away you're seen.
And being comfortable when you give eye contact to people in a class that they will often look like they are having the worst time of their life. It is not fun. And then they will come up to you after class and be like, hey, that was the most amazing experience of my life. And you're like, could have never told it. I was really scared during class. Love that moment. That's great.
Absolutely. It's like, I want their eyes to tell me that they want to kill me. And then I just want to hug because they loved it so much.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's the combo.
And that's such a tough thing as a new instructor. And I think like these are things that we know as owners or as managers, but how do we build this up in our instructors? Like I could give that checklist, but I don't necessarily want my instructors checking a box because I want it to feel authentic. And also I recognize that every instructor has a unique way of presenting what could be the exact same class. And that's kind of the charm of it. So how do you guide or like mold instructors to embody what you're hoping to get them to?
Absolutely. Everyone needs to find their own flavor, right? Like if I tried to teach a class as Caroline, it's just not going to resonate, right? Because as much as we're both introverts, everyone has their own style. So what I think is really important is to encourage some self-reflection with our instructors as well. Like what are they comfortable with? It kind of transfers across into our sales teams. I do not like a sales script, right? I like sales points, like dot points of talk about this and hit this point. But when you just read off a script, it doesn't sound like you. So you have to be able to put your own flavor into it. And for example, I think it's going to be different in the ways that people show a skill within class as opposed to teaching a skill. Right? That is one important distinction. Like, are we just showing people how to do it, or are we actually imparting the knowledge to them in terms of how to do this?
Yeah. And part of that really forces the instructor to step out of their comfort zone, because I think especially when you're new or you have those really green instructors, it's a lot easier to just show it, but then you're not reading the room. You're not seeing how it's resonating with people. You're not catching like, whoa, was my cue so off that I thought it was perfect, but now they're all doing this weird thing and that has messed me up. Like that is something to kind of grapple with. And I think we both resonate with being over planners. And I certainly, when I first started teaching, it would throw me off so much when like my class plan went off, but you really have to lean into that, like, you know what you're talking about, you've got it, so run with it. And that's tough.
Absolutely. And sometimes you think that you've nailed the description of what they need to be doing, and then everyone just goes a different direction. Yeah. And you're like, okay, guess we're doing this instead. You know what I mean? I think you hit on such a hugely important point here, right? Which it's a core element of what a great instructor needs, which is adaptability. Right? So, what's that saying around plans and God laughs and all that kind of stuff? Because you can map out exactly what you think is going to happen in class, and then you get in there and all of a sudden you've got 15 people just doing a whole different vibe.
Totally. Yeah. You have to be able to read the room as the class is unfolding. And that is easier said than done. It is hard. There are 1,000 things you are thinking of while you are teaching, but kind of learning how to run with that. And I always think like, we're really hard on ourselves. If I mess up, I want everyone to do this thing on the right side, and I just said the left side, and I'm like, oh, that's it. The class is done. But if I think of all of the classes I've taken, never once has the class gone perfectly executed, and the instructor will acknowledge it. And I'm like, yes, you're human. I see that. That's okay. Like I'm having a hard time here too.
Yeah. I mean, I think back to this time I was the center manager of this large scale center back in Australia, and we had a no-show for a class. The instructor didn't turn up, but it wasn't just a regular class. It was a water aerobics class. Okay. I've never taken a water aerobics class in my life, but what I do know is that a water aerobics client they're someone that you know about. They like what they like and they're going to let you know about it, right? So I did not want to cancel this class when I've got 8 people in the pool ready to go. So as a certified group fitness instructor, I stepped up, right? And when we talk about adaptability, I had to show it, right? So I look back at the things that I did there and I was just very honest with them, right? I really built that connection because I was like, technically, I don't know what to do. I was like, it feels like we would tread water for 30 seconds. Does that sound like? And you build that connection. They were kind of helping me in terms of prescribing the exercises. And I was just being a personality, right? I was keeping time. I was following their lead. I was vibing with them and just turning it into a laugh.
Yeah, totally. And this is where I always really like, for cases like that, or if I just have to step in as a sub for someone else who was the most beloved instructor on the studio. And like, man, what a feeling when you're stepping in and they're like, wait, it's you. I thought it was so-and-so. But I'll always encourage instructors to take each other's classes, which is so basic, but it can be tough when that's your workplace, so that if you're the one that has to teach this power vinyasa and you usually teach warm, slow flow, you're like, okay, no, I can jump in. I know what they would do. I've got this. I trust it.
Exactly. And that's where that performance comes out, right? Like, in case you guys haven't noticed, I'm not Caroline. Yeah. I am not Caroline teaching this class right now. I am Matt. But you know what? There's benefits in mixing it up and trying different things. So let's see how a Matt vinyasa class goes. Exactly. There you go. So talk to me a little bit about, because we just kind of hit on it, right? Consistency. People will come to the same instructors week after week. They'll do the same things and they like what they like. So from an instructor perspective, what are your thoughts around sort of balancing consistency without introducing complacency?
It's really tough because I can see it from both sides. On like the studio owner perspective, and I know that my clients might get in a rut if they feel like they're doing the same thing every time. And from being an instructor, I know how tough it can be when you feel like you've hit that wall in sequencing and you're like, man, I cannot teach another Warrior 2 today. Like I just cannot. And so this is where I really look in how can I, as a studio owner or manager, implement some professional development or continuing education? Because if we can infuse even once a quarter or twice a year some kind of opportunity to refresh the way they're looking at the practice, and like, listen, this can be as simple as having your instructor step up once a quarter and pitch an idea that they have or present a topic that they are really knowledgeable on. Because when we look at our instructors again and we talk about that unique angle we all come from, what resonates with me in a group fitness class is different from you. And if I can show that to my instructors, I'm like bolstering my own confidence in this, but opening other instructors' eyes to what could be. And that can really infuse some new life into sequencing and classes, all of those things.
For sure. And something that I always had to remind myself of when I was teaching was, just because I've taught this class 5 times today, so for me, it feels really repetitive. It's the first time for these people. Yes. Right? And even if you've got a class and you've got regulars in there, you're going to also get some people coming in who it's their first time or they're new to you, right? So it's important to use the consistency element to build trust, right? That everyone knows they're going to get a really good, really solid class from you. Build your brand as well, right? So like we're saying, everyone has their own style and we want to really flex that. That can be a real positive as it relates to retention and customer satisfaction and all those sorts of things, right? But at the same time, it's important that we don't get stale, right? So the first step there is, am I actually getting complacent, right? Or does it just feel complacent because I'm doing this so much? If the answer is, I actually haven't taken on any professional development recently. I haven't kind of tried a different modality. I haven't tried a different instructor and picked up some different movements or styles or anything like that. Then it's probably a healthy thing to really introduce that. And also, if I'm doing these things, like if I'm continuing to mix it up and learn new styles, I'm also going to avoid some burnout.
Absolutely. It'll like reinvigorate that passion. I don't teach on my studio schedule anymore, but I took a 1-hour workshop on mobility and I was so jazzed. I was like, hey, I want to take over your class this week. Please let me hop in. And I was like, I have 7,000 ideas to pack into this 60-minute class. And it was so fun. But prior to that, that spark was not ignited. I did not really want to teach. And so even like small steps, it can be such an eye opener. And I'll tell my team too, like, like make a new playlist. If you're using the same playlist over and over, you can teach the same sequence, but change up the playlist and suddenly you're like, yes, everybody, this is the class. We're going to have so much fun.
Yeah. And you know what comes to mind? Shout out to all my millennials out there listening. Remember Bring It On? How they got that instructor and he mixed all those different styles together and he created that not as disastrously as it was in the movie, but I think there's something really to that, right? Where you can try different things and work them all in together and it creates something really interesting.
Totally, totally. And I think we also have to come from the perspective of like, yes, we're teaching a fitness class and there are movement goals here, but really more than anything, what's getting people to stay is community. And so we're community builders, not just class leaders. And that can be a mindset shift for people.
Yeah, it's the spirit fingers, right? We're spirit fingers for our studio. So often it is the connections that will keep people coming back, right? I think at a certain point, let's be realistic. There is somewhat of a finite amount of exercises and flows that we can do in our classes, right? And we can mix up the order and the flow and the playlist and all that kind of stuff. But then what is really going to keep people coming back? And you can see across the fitness industry that trends are cyclical, right? So for example, I would say right now, it's a little bit harder for cycle, right? Because cycle was peaking a few years ago, but I have no doubt cycle will come back. Right? We saw HIIT really after the pandemic. That was where it was at because people could do it at home. They could do it outside. Whereas now people are starting to move a little bit more away from that again. And they're going into Pilates and yoga and more of that lower impact. So your best kind of safeguard against that is having those connections so that people feel like this is my family, this is my home, this is my community. I don't want to leave.
Yeah. And it's tough because we as trainers who are knowledgeable in exercise know that it's consistency. It's like realistically doing the same thing every week and making a little bit harder that gets you that result. And we want to give that to our clients, but we also don't want them to burn out. And we know we have to keep it exciting if they want to keep coming. And so it's like grappling with that. And I go back to my first example of my instructor, Nick. It's like, it's not necessarily the classes he's teaching. It's the fact that he remembers the little things that no one else thinks they're going to remember that keeps him coming back.
Yeah. And I remember when I was a personal trainer, I had some clients that they almost were just coming to hang out and to talk and have the conversation, you know what I mean? And they're kind of mid-sentence telling you these stories and you're handing them the dumbbells and you're like, take these while you're talking. Right. And it definitely became less around the workout. They obviously still enjoyed it and they had a great time and were getting results, but it really just felt like they were in a habit that they really enjoyed and that routine was working for them and they just wanted to catch up on how everything's going. It's a lot of money to pay for a catch up. A coffee is cheaper, even in LA.
Whatever
coffee
works,
is cheaper.
though. No, I think there's a coach on my team who has a client, and she was recently telling me how there's all these things that we could implement in the studio, but what the client really wanted to focus on was she had walked into the studio and she had come into this conversation of everyone talking about this like blue nail polish color, and she was like, it's beautiful. Like, I want to foster that. I want people talking about the nail polish and feeling comfortable just hanging out here and doing the thing pre or post workout. And it's like, yeah, I mean, to some extent, that is what it's all about.
So to kind of summarize those key points that we spoke about, it's the power of presence, right? So it's the performative kind of nature of a great instructor. It's mastering the craft. So from a skill perspective, it's having the technical skills, but then it's also having the soft skills. A great trainer is adaptable, right? So they're able to, within the class itself, adjust to things in real time, read the room, and vibe it out, right? They're also consistent, but not complacent, right? And they foster this real sense of community. So if we take those 5 things and we're like, right, these are the marks of a brilliant instructor, how do we then get our team to actually do these things? So as a studio owner, how are you going to get all of your instructors doing all of these things?
I mean, listen, I feel like every time we talk about something, we come back to one-on-ones and like talking to people and knowing the people on your team. And Again, everyone has their own unique skill set in the modality. And so I might have a really strong presence, but I'm not very adaptable. But if I don't take the time to audit classes and get to know the struggles and weaknesses and strengths of my instructors, I can't give that really pinpointed feedback because it's overwhelming if I say, I need you to do all of these things next week. But if I can give you a really pinpointed piece of feedback, then you can implement that and I can audit your class again. And then I can give you another piece of advice, and I'll always flip the script and be really honest about what I'm working on, because I think as a leader, we also need to be able to show that we are striving for excellence too, if we really want to foster that culture. And I think if you're in the position where your studio has a teacher training, really check the curriculum in your teacher training. You might be covering amazing technique and get instructors that can lead an amazing or can teach an amazing sequence, but can they lead it, right? Like, are we teaching those soft skills too? And I think that could become a huge, unique selling proposition for your teacher training.
Absolutely. And something else I really love, and we've spoken about this in previous episodes, is around not just having KPIs, key performance indicators that are data driven for financials, for example, but having cultural KPIs as well, right? So I think it could be a really interesting exercise. In fact, I know it is because I've done this to establish both, right? So sit down with an instructor, have these 5 things, weight them differently. As you said, people have different strengths and different comfort zones, right? But weight them and put some measures in place on how they can hit each of these things, right? So for example, consistent but not complacent. What professional development have they done? Now that doesn't mean that they have to pay $1,000 for a course and sit in there for 3 days. It can literally be taking 3 different instructors in a couple different modalities in that month and bringing back their learnings, right? Performatively, we can say, do you shout out 5 clients by name minimum per round, right? Are you staying for 10 minutes after class to chat with everyone, high five them on the way out of the door? So we can measure these things and you can put them in place. And then obviously the byproduct of these things, which determines a great instructor, their utilization should go up, their retention's going to go up, the client feedback that we get, that's all the basic measurable stuff.
Yeah, and it's tough because we want to use those benchmarks, but we also want to highlight like, hey, you're not the worst instructor in the world if you only had 2 people this week. Or like, again, it's just, it all has to flow together, and we have to come to that cohesive and holistic nature of like, we are just working towards getting you to teach and lead really the best class that you can. And you mentioned like bringing in client feedback. I love surveying clients and seeing what they bring in, because oftentimes they bring in really information and feedback than we as like well-trained, KPI driven, behind the scenes people would. And sometimes that can be really eye-opening too.
Sure. And I think you hit on such a good point there as well, which is just because an instructor has like 90% utilization across their classes, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are better than an instructor who might only have 60%, right? There are certain instructors that appeal to certain cohorts within our client base, and maybe that cohort isn't as significant as with others, right? However, there is a real purpose and strategy behind servicing that cohort in a way that really resonates with them. So I think that's a brilliant point, that KPIs are great for quantifying performance and we can use them for a lot of our decision making, but there is nuance to it that we can't just make it black and white and write it off.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I think we covered a lot in terms of what makes a great instructor. And I hope if you're listening, you took some great points and you can really assess how you're managing the instructors in your studio or how you're instructing a class yourself. If you felt that this resonated with you, be sure to share it with another instructor friend or with your studio. Like and subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one.